This is Unprompted. Okay.
So on Unprompted, we like to start with something inherently off screen. So do you have something you could potentially talk about?
Yeah. I mean, I got two things I could one I could show you, one I could talk about. But yeah, stuff
Amazing.
off screen is tough these days.
It is tough. And I think a lot of people find that question a bit tough. Some people go the sort of gray area of it not being offline. And I think that's okay. It's just really more of an insight into you. And
yeah, sweet. I'll grab one thing. I'm terrible at it, but it's
wow.
why I'll come closer to the mic. It's why I like doing it. And I haven't drawn it as much recently, but I like charcoal drawings. I'll show it for the screen. It's just an old dude. And one of the fun things about drawing like old people faces is the more mistakes you make, the more they just feel like unique people.
Mm.
Or it's like, oh, you made a mistake there. That's just a wrinkle. Or their nose is just funny from age, or different things like that. So a couple of years ago, I started, just feeling like I wanted some more tactile, tangible, craft in my life, and I picked up charcoal drawing just a little bit because it's like so accessible. It's so easy to get into. And there's so many great tutorials. Like when I sit down to draw, I'm usually like looking up some sort of tutorial to follow. So even then it's like, I'm not getting away from the screens too much, but
That's fine.
it has nothing to do with my work in advertising. And it makes me feel like, I still have some sort of like tangible craft, and I'm not cheating my way through art entirely.
Yeah, you said.
But the biggest thing is it's just so easy to get into. Like I feel like anyone who's ever wanted to try like painting or whatever, it's just like start with charcoal drawing type stuff, because it's like it's just black and white. It's just values and like levels of how dark, how light. So it's fun.
It's fascinating. I mean, first of all, that's not bad. That's a pretty amazing piece of art, I have to say.
Thank you.
And it's so funny that you said like a few years ago you wanted to start something more tactile. I literally had that same thing almost this year. And obviously it kind of relates to this as well. I just think that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Why did you start charcoal out of interest? Why that specific?
Partly because it was like as an art director, every bit of like my creative self seems to be capitalized in some way. Like every part of my creative self kind of goes into the job. It's like, I have an interest in animation, it's going to go into the job somehow. If like I'm interested in comics, it's going to go into the job somehow. I try to have hobbies that don't go into the job and don't get like wrapped up into work, so that I can just like always turn to them and enjoy them. And like the other more analog thing, like hobby that I've done for years has been board sports like skateboarding and surfing and snowboarding. And when I was in New York the last few years, and even before that, I was in Atlanta and Chicago. I've just been in like cities that didn't have a lot of like snowboarding, or they have like skateboarding, but I didn't learn to skate until I was almost 30, and stuff like that. So it was like I needed something I could turn my brain off and turn my phone off and sit down and draw. So that was the main motivation behind doing charcoal at the beginning, at least.
I think another thing I want to touch on is, as soon as you picked it up, you said it's something I'm very bad at, which isn't necessarily the case. But I think a lot of barrier to entry of people starting new skills is the afraid to be bad at something. I know that when I want to start a new creative thing, I want to be the best at it straight away. I guess a question to you is how do you overcome that?
I feel like I don't. Like that's the whole point, and that's why it's like it's so fun. I think I've always considered myself like a serial hobbyist, or I'll call it like a chronic dabbler. Like I'm constantly picking up new things because I think I enjoy the challenge of being bad at something and getting to be like okay. And then I'll often table a hobby. Like I haven't done charcoal in a couple months, but it's like I'll table it once it starts. I start feeling like I'm getting too good, or like not that I'm good at it, but it's like once it starts to feel like, oh, I'm not bad or I'm not terrible, and then I need to just get some like new inspiration or a new goal or new motivation to pick it back up, because I don't know, I feel like feel like feeling bad at something sometimes is like the motivation for certain things, like certain hobbies. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think you have to overcome it, but it also depends on the person and how much separation you have between your hobby and yourself and certain things. Like there's definitely things that get a little bit more borderline tangential with like my career that I think I'd be more self-conscious about. But I don't know, for some stuff, it's like I do charcoal because it's like I don't care if I'm bad at it. So maybe that's my way of kind of getting over it or wrapping my head around it, is I just give myself an excuse that there's a lot of people that don't ever try new things. And so
I think
just starting is impressive.
exactly what you just said. Starting is impressive. I think your perspective on it is really great. And I think that there must be some sort of scientific thing where you turn 30 and you want to run, because I'm exactly the same.
It's so
I'm
funny.
already planning my first marathon.
Yeah, I
It's
think
funny.
that it has to be age related. Also, like as soon as I had a kid, all of a sudden there was no one I cared to impress except for the future him and my future self, and regret, and all of that became just such a huge motivator. Yeah, I really took a look at my life the last couple of years and thought, okay, I want to start living the life I dreamed of and stop like tabling things and stop like procrastinating the stuff that I knew I was working up towards.
Have you
Yeah,
heard
I
of the
think
term?
it's got to be the age,
Sorry.
like the 30-year-old milestone too, where you're like, all right, I sacrificed my 20s. Now it's time to it's time to buckle down or something.
It's certainly, there's also, I think, or at least for me, there's a mindset shift of, especially now, feel okay picking up and being bad at stuff because I don't really care what other people think. That's kind of a barrier you cross, certainly in your, well, for me it's 30, but maybe late 20s for others.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the term dad law? Because that's what you what
Dad
you're
lore?
describing.
Yeah, I haven't heard it much, but I feel like I already resonate with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the act of doing all these, all the stories you want to tell your kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And it's like you have so many moments with your kid of like teaching them things, of like telling them stories. And I feel a lot of pride in the stories that come from myself, like the stories and the things I teach them that come from my own experience. And it's like, oh, that's why I did those things. That's why I tried to be adventurous, or I tried to explore the world or stuff like that. Cause now it's becoming useful and valuable to the way I teach my son.
That's great. You said you mentioned there was a second thing?
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I think about a lot when people ask me like, what do I do in my spare time? And, or, when I think of something analog that I picked up is skateboarding. I grew up doing a lot of wakeboarding and snowboarding. I grew up in Canada, and so I go to the mountains, I go snowboard a lot. But when I moved to Chicago for my first advertising job with BBDO in Chicago, and was kind of ended up landlocked. Like Chicago's got the lake there, and technically you could surf and stuff in the lake. But I just found myself like a little stuck and not able to go do some of those board sports that I always enjoyed. And to me, they're more of an art than a sport. They're a lot it's a lot about kind of self-expression and just seeing like what you're capable of, and a lot of like mental visioning and trying to figure out like what could I perform, what could I do in my head, and trying to make that a reality. So when I was 28, it was I think it was probably COVID, like late 20s. It was COVID-ish at COVID time. And everyone was trying hobbies. And I thought, now or never, I'm going to try to learn to skate. And within a couple of years, I went from like being absolutely terrible at skateboarding to now I can like ride bowls and drop in on like big pools, and not completely vert ramp size stuff, but like solid skate transition obstacles and things like that. And so that's been a huge, just a help for me the last few years throughout my career, honestly, because it's like you just have to have things like that. You have to have things that aren't your career. So yeah, that's the other thing. And I don't know if people would consider skateboarding an art, but I think it's a little bit more of that for me. It's not just a sport. And I think a lot of hobbies are like that, whether they're arts or they're like activities.
I think what was props to you for that. I mean, skateboarding is actually pretty scary. I tried it at uni. Like just being able to ollie up a curb is kind of terrifying.
It's terrifying. Yeah, I'm still terrible at ollieing, but going down a ramp and just like throwing my body weight around, I can do that because it's more similar to the stuff that I grew up doing, like carving on a mountain and snowboarding and stuff like that.
I think with skateboarding as well, it's definitely one where you've got to focus entirely on the task. And I think everyone's got to have that thing where you can just completely switch off your mind and focus on something you love.
Yeah.
I think that's
Is that
super
something
important.
you've seen from a lot of the people you've interviewed too? Is like that's one of the biggest benefits is being able to switch off your mind.
For myself, it's something that I touched on because mine is football. I play a lot. I used to play a lot as a kid, and it came to my sort of mind where I was like, it's the one part of my week where I'm just focusing on football. There's like no other thoughts, and it sort of led me to think that like everyone sort of needs that kind of escape. But yes, it has come up. It has come up a fair bit.
Are you in a Sunday league or you still playing?
I used to be. I don't play so much anymore. I play like a 9-a-side on a Friday, but I used to love Sunday league. But I moved away from where we were, so that was a sad time.
Yeah,
but I mean, sport in general.
I love football though. I grew up playing a lot of indoor soccer because of the snow and everything. So our season is a little shorter there. I mean, we'd often in the spring. That's when the league season was for us. But then just wanted to keep playing through the winter. And yeah, it took like 10 years off of never playing, and then jumped back into a league when I was in New York, and it was just like, I mean, it was humbling because I'd lost all of my ability, but it was fun. Like a lot of it just became more about helping the team and being a team player rather than like as a young buck trying to score goals and stand out in the crowd.
So I want to get a little bit more into the way you think, because I think that's super interesting. So how do you set yourself up to do your best thinking?
My kind of philosophy around thinking is trying to remove any sort of filter, any sort of self-criticism, and trying to just tap into my kind of subconscious brain, like trying to tap into the randomness and any sort of strategic thought, the stuff that's just in there because it's in there. So the way I would usually set that up is just putting my phone down and just staring at a blank page. I'm usually someone who writes my thoughts on either on my phone or like in a Google Doc, but it's like, okay, I gotta sit down, I gotta do this. I'm just gonna pour out every thought that comes to mind. And I feel like my best thinking is just the stuff that I'm not like thinking too hard, and it comes more naturally, or it comes out of thin air, or it's like doesn't feel like it's even coming from me. It's just like, oh, that's something random. In a way, I feel like it's almost like that method of thinking. I've pulled that and stolen that from other people, other creatives that I've worked with, creative directors. Jason Bagley has an article where he talks about like really trying to come up with ideas by not trying to come up with great ideas and just trying to tap into your subconscious. But in a way, I've thought recently that it's that method is similar to what AI does, where it's like AI is just pulling from massive databases of information and possibly like making random connections, or at least it like used to make more random connections, and now it's almost starting to like try to make not random connections and to guess and all that. And I think like the more random I can try to be, more I can just introduce serendipity or again just the randomness of it. That's when the best ideas for me come out of it. But yeah, how I set that up, honestly, I'm terrible at getting off my phone. So it's usually just like trying to force some sort of deadline and being like, okay, I have to pour out my brain and fill this doc within the next 30 minutes. Like, I think for me, I'm motivated a lot by speed and trying to get things done. But I don't know if that answers your question perfectly.
For sure. I think obviously being such a big creator as well, it's going to be hard to not be on your phone quite a lot with all the, I just like starting it myself a little bit. It just takes up a lot of your time. So I
Fair.
get that. And I actually, the amount of times I've asked this question is kind of funny how it almost always lands on the answer is you can't. Because your best thinking comes from when you're not trying to do your best thinking. It comes when you're in a flow state. And yeah, I think it's fascinating.
The one other thing that I know I do my best thinking, but it's not really healthy for me, is I'm a huge night owl. And that setting for me, when everyone else is asleep, I'm tired and I want to go to sleep, but there's literally no distraction because, especially being on the West Coast of the US, like the world is kind of, at least to the west of me to the east of me, everyone's like asleep already, and there's less notifications, and for some reason just at night, that's when the to-do lists and the things in my brain kind of shut off, because like nothing matters. It's like I either sleep or I do the thing I want to be doing, which is like coming up with the idea I want to come up with, or editing or something. So I say it's not very healthy for me, because I'm trying to be less of a night owl and try to go to sleep and get my sleep, especially with like a kid that wakes up early and all that. But that setting is something I try to replicate. I do a lot of my deep important work during my kid's nap as well, because I think there's also a bit of that timeline of I got to get this done, because when my kid wakes up at 4 p.m., I know it's going to be harder to get done and I want to go play with him. So there's like an afternoon nap, which isn't going to be around forever, but there's an afternoon nap of like 3 hours where I can crank out like an 8-hour work day in that time period, because I'm just like, I don't want to be working in the evening. I got to get this done. I feel like everyone struggles with time slipping away, and we all wish there was more time in the day. And for me, it's like at nighttime, that is the time that you get extra. Is like, if I stay up late, I literally get 3 or 4 extra hours.
So
and for some reason, I can't switch my brain to do the reverse of that. Of like, if I wake up at 5 a.m., I get 3 or 4 extra hours of the day. It's only, and maybe it's my procrastination or something, but I leave it to the end of the day.
I wonder if it's just completely off the cuff, thinking about it now. Like in the morning doesn't really feel like relaxed time to me, whereas in the evening I can wind down, and that, I don't know, maybe I prefer that time. But I could wind down in the morning. But I think because the looming work you've got to do for the day feels like less fun time.
No, I believe that. Yeah, that feels right to me. Like last night, I literally was up till 12:31 because it was just like some bit of inspiration struck for a little Instagram video series I want to do about taste. Just the inspiration struck, and it was like, I'm gonna just stay up and do it because I've got the time right now, and I can always, I don't know, I just push off the suffering of being sleepy. But it is like, I'm more relaxed. I was sitting on the couch, and there's no one who needs me, no emails that I couldn't just respond to in the morning. So I agree with that for sure.
So I guess I can probably answer this question already, but how do you avoid getting repetitive in your thinking? I assume that as a content creator, you've always got to be not repetitive.
Yeah, repetitive in your thinking. I don't know if I actively try to not be repetitive. And part of that might be being a content creator. And I think a lot of creators start to realize that the more repetitive you are, the more you either refine a certain style, or you refine your message, or your audience starts to understand your message. And I don't know if my goal has ever been to avoid being repetitive. There's I don't remember who the artist is, but there's this like amazing case study. This artist did this sort of experience where he was like, I'm a terrible drawer or something like that, and he's like, I'm gonna draw a stork every day for a year. Maybe it wasn't a stork, it was like an albatross or something like that. It was some weird bird. And he was like, I'm gonna draw an albatross every day for a year. And that repetition, for a lot of people, you'd probably want to avoid. But for him, he realized that that's how you improve. That's how he was able to refine his style. And he literally drew so many different versions of an albatross, and drew like little simple ones and more complicated ones, and some that are more like a cartoon and some that were more photoreal. But by the end of it, he had improved way more than if he had tried to do a whole bunch of different types of things or tried to force himself to be original. And maybe maybe it was also just a lesson of constraints, of the fact that he was constrained to an albatross. Maybe that made it easier. But for me, I don't think the stuff that I've done is necessarily the perfect version of that thing. So I don't mind like giving it another stab, or trying to say the same thing again but saying it better, or making something similar but just making it like slightly different. But that might be the tactical thing to try to do, is just like you find one ingredient that you might tweak, or you find one little ingredient that you want to explore in a different way.
I love the way your brain works, because you're the first person to almost reframe that as a repetitive being a good thing. And I think it's interesting because the question originally came from like overuse of AI and constantly using the same prompts and stuff. I think, and exactly what you just said, being repetitive, especially as a content creator, I think, or creating content, with every iteration, you're just getting better and better. And sometimes you'll reuse old ideas, but you'll do it better. And I think that's actually a much nicer way of putting it.
I don't know. Maybe it is. And maybe my stuff just gets stale after a while if I'm not, actively trying to change it. Because at the same time, like, I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, or at the same time, I also really value experimentation and switching it up. But maybe I also could be conflating repetition with repetitiveness, or consistency with repetitiveness. Like, you don't want it to feel repetitive, but I think we all also like often find excuses for just not doing the thing and for not keep like making no matter what. And I pride myself in being a creative that no matter what, like, I put out as much as I can. I try not to ever stop. And if I do stop, or if I do plateau, I always get back on the horse, and I try to stay humble in a lot of ways of my life. But that's something where I'm like, no, I'm good at always making, whether it's like dumb little things and they're not good, or they are a little better.
So if you had one piece of advice for young people to build a creative career on their own terms, what would it be?
Yeah, I've been thinking about what like my own terms are a lot recently. And I think, like, for young people, if I was at the beginning of my career, like, building something on your own terms isn't easy at the very beginning. And I feel like you have to kind of realize that not everything is going to be on our own terms at the very beginning. But one of the terms that I made for myself was I was going to give up a lot of my control over my career. I was willing to move to the States, willing to move to whatever city. There was a lot of people even in my class, and even myself at the time, like there was a part of me that was like, I have to go to New York. I have to go to a certain location. And I gave up a lot of that because I figured, you know what, maybe the opportunity is the most important thing, or the people and the mentorship that I could get is the most important thing. So I thought, okay, I'll go to the coldest freaking city in the US. I'll go to, not the coldest, obviously, but like, I'll go to Chicago, the windy city of all places. And that was not a place that I thought was very alluring until I actually got there and learned how beautiful of a city it was. But same thing with Atlanta. Like, I had no draw to Atlanta in the US, didn't know anything about it, but there was an opportunity to work on running shoes, work on a brand that I wanted to be closer to. I think for young creatives, you really have to decide what is the most important stuff to you that you're not willing to give up, and try your best to give up everything else, because I think that's when so many more doors are going to open. And if you're stipulating like, oh, I'm only going to do this, or I'm only going to do that too early, those doors may never be open. And behind those doors might be like a whole chain of different events that could open up other doors and stuff like that. That's, for me, has been the biggest thing for my career, and like the jobs that I've been able to get, was just being really open-minded. But then the other thing for building a career on your own terms is no one's ever going to hire you for something you've never done before, which is like the hardest pill to swallow is that like we want these experiences that we've never experienced, but most companies and brands that like they're not gonna ever take that risk on us if we haven't shown that we can already handle it. So that's why like spec projects are literally the way we get into the industry. Is you make a project that is as real or could be as close to real as possible, even though it wasn't actually, commissioned by a brand. And then a client or a creative director or recruiter is able to see like, oh, if I wanted them to work on this really cool project for Nike or whatever, I can see they've already crushed it on something similar. And I think that applies not just to spec work, but to any sort of work. That's why I make like a ton of stuff constantly too. Was I wasn't making the work I wanted to be making at earlier in my career at BBDO. So I would do animation on the side, and I would do GIFs and things like that, and pick up little side things because they were more interesting and more fulfilling to me. But I think those two things, being really open, and then you just have to, you can't wait. You have to make constantly and make the thing that you want to be making. Yeah, no one's going to hand you that opportunity.
I think that's an interesting perspective. Making stuff that you actually want to do is quite, I guess sometimes it's difficult because you don't know what you want to do. So in that case, I guess do lots. But I guess even I'm an example of not creating the stuff that I want to do. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I think for me, like I'm still constantly asking myself, like, what do I want to be doing? And it usually comes down to like, what am I envious of? And whether I'm willing to put in the work to do what I know they had to do. Like when I decided I wanted to quit my job and just go full time into the creator industry, I kind of looked at some of the other creators, and you try to kid yourself like, oh, they must have, there's some sort of secret I don't know. But in reality, there's often not very many secrets. It's just they put in the work that you would probably expect you'd have to do. And I just had to decide, like, do I want to do the work necessary to have that life, or do I want to do the work that I already know I can do? And I'm not sure if that's a tangent. Yeah, that's
no, not at all. I mean, I'm literally trying to do that myself. I'm like learning videography and editing as an art director, but it's kind of interesting because I've never been the person holding the camera. And I think one, I wanted to learn something with my hands, and two, I've seen on Instagram like that there's some really amazing film people out there, and like I'm trying not to be putting myself off because I know the amount of time that it took them to get there. So I'm trying to put in the time myself.
Part of me went the art direction route too, because when I was in school, I was surrounded by a lot of good art directors, copywriters, but we also had this content creator track in my program where these like amazing DP director type young creatives were in the same program. And I was technically a content creator at first, but it was so clear to me how much better at cinematography they were, and how much better at directing and producing the actual execution they were than I was. So I realized like I'm way better at thinking. I'm better at like coming up with the ideas than I am actually executing, at least at this stage. So I went like full on into art direction instead of trying to be like a commercial director or a DP or something like that, or even like video editing and animation. I decided like I didn't want to specialize in that route because there's so many other creatives that are just amazing at it, and they poured their entire lives into that. So no, I relate to you on that for sure. It's tough. There's just a lot of talent out there.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that that's something I want to do. The main thing for me is actually committing to a skill and doing it for long enough that I can like see results. I'm not necessarily trying to be the best editor or videographer in the world. I struggle sometimes with consistency, so that's really what I'm working on.
Yeah, I feel you.
So yeah, I've got a couple more sort of personal questions for you. Obviously,
I got plenty of time too.
Oh, great. You built like a crazy amount of following, 172,000 last time I checked. You got a newsletter, podcast, courses, and partnerships, you name it. It's like for someone's, I guess you've already answered this, but from someone starting from scratch, like looking at someone Like, what does it take to get to where you are?
Yeah, what it takes, honestly, is a lot of late nights. Last year, especially, it was 2024 that I decided I wanted to go all in and finally like stop holding myself back. And it was a lot of 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. time where I knew I had the time to myself. I could sacrifice that time, and I just poured it into short form video. And for me, short form video was the biggest unlock. It was like I'd been doing YouTube for years, little YouTube tutorials. I tried to, even back in college, like done travel vlogs and traveling the world, trying to be like a Casey Neistat or something like that. But none of that was ever something that really broke through for me. But for me, short form videos, Instagram, I found that I could just condense a lot of storytelling, a lot of craft just into that short amount of time. And that's enough to break through. A lot of it was just a little bit of mental gymnastics in my head, trying to decide like if I'm pouring 40 hours of energy into a brand, what could I accomplish if I poured even half of that time, or at least 3 hours every night, into myself, into my own videos? And they're only 30-second to 60-second videos. Like I could make these really awesome. So to get to where I'm at now, it was sacrificing a little bit, but also there is a lot of little tactics that you learn along the way. And like I did mention like you have to just like be repeating it over and over and learning as you go. But a lot of the things that I did learn was just like how important hooks are, how to tell a story that's super value dense is something that I try to do, so that it's like this 30 seconds, there's no lull in it. Like it can be paced. It doesn't have to be like Mr. Beast crazy, but you just want people to feel like they're getting a lot of value out of the content that they're creating. I realized just how much art direction really plays a role in being a creator, and how like powerful that skill set is too, where pick a beautiful image, pick an image that can grab people's attention, and that will be the thing that stops people from scrolling on by. So some of those little things have definitely helped. It's been helpful that I have the art direction background, because I'm trying to just apply it as a creator, and I think it's working. Yeah,
it's definitely working. I have to say your pacing is always amazing. Like you talk quite slowly but confidently, and it's always hooked towards the end. So you're doing something right for sure.
I appreciate that. Thanks.
So something you talk about is like how you navigate introversion versus public. I find that there's quite an interesting contrast between, you talk about being an introvert, especially when you're in your working days, but obviously you're such a public facing creator. I wonder how you navigate that.
I think it's always surprising to people. And like because it's like, yeah, being a creator, you're on camera, you're showing people, you're the spotlight. So it's like you'd expect that to be an extroverted person's career. But I think a lot of creators are actually really introverted, and that's their outlet. Like even if someone's introverted, you still you want to be heard, and you want your ideas to be known. Or at least, my version of being introverted, like I still I want to impact the world. I want to be heard. I feel like I have ideas that are valuable. And so one thing that really impacted me was I had an ECD that I was working with, Robin Lawrence. She's from Ireland, but she's in Chicago. And I just remember a moment where she told me, like, you need to speak up more. Like, you need to share your ideas, and you need to be confident that like your ideas are worth hearing. And I've got a garbage truck going by in case you can hear all that.
I can't, so it's fine.
Yeah, that ECD just sitting me down and saying like, talk more. Because I was surrounded by a lot of extroverts. Like I have had great copywriter partners I've worked with, and they're usually the complete opposite of me. They were usually more extroverted and more of the limelight, and got more credit for the ideas. And so I figured like at that moment I needed to just like learn how to fake it, and learn how to own the stage, presenting and being at that point, like started to get more into Zoom calls and all that. So like own this little frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when my career really picked up. I left BBDO and went to another agency, went to Amazon. I've gone into the freelance world a bit. And the moment I decided like, okay, the next place I go to, like I left BBDO, but it kind of gave me a new chapter. And it was like, I'm going to just fake it. I'm going to pretend that I'm not introverted and that this doesn't soak a ton of energy out of me. And it's helped a ton, which in one way is sad that introverts have to fake it. But in the other way, I think it's not necessarily that, like, I don't do well at company parties. I don't do well in person as much because I just like, I don't know, I just get awkward. But I think a lot of introverts, especially in creative companies, you just have to pick the moments that matter. It's like presentation, pitching to your clients. Those are moments that matter. So you prep a lot. You prep for 30 minutes, at least 10 minutes before your call. There's also like moments when you're with a client, you put it on, you turn on the light switch a little bit and try to emulate being a good extroverted creative. And then also like I've talked to a lot of different creatives about digital extroversion, like just be active in Slack or whatever your company team's channel is. It's like be seen, be known, comment on people's stuff. Like when people are sharing at the company all hands, like be in the chat, because the best opportunities always come to those who are top of mind. So I just figured like if I want to have good opportunities and not be held back, I have to just be top of mind, be seen and be known. And maybe that's also like that also helps as a creator now, is like I'm as seen and as known as possible. Like I try to just be out there, and that brings opportunities 100%.
I think that's great advice. I've not heard that before, digital extroversion, but I like it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I think there's a part of a lot of introverts that are digitally extroverted. The ones that just loved instant messaging back in the day. In Canada, we were all on MSN chat and stuff like that, or introverts that are super into different niche TikTok things. It's like there's some extroversion there. It's just a little safer and digital and behind a screen. And for me, I love Zooms. Like I love the frame because it feels like I'm in control and there's some sort of safety there. So it's where I thrive a little bit more than in person for sure.
I get that for sure. I'm watching a lot of your reels, and one of them you mentioned, actually it's not, I've got two, sorry. Art direction tends to be made up of ideas in craft. I wonder where you see the future of craft being.
I don't know where craft is going to really go, especially just like AI being the hot topic. But I think like right now, I think about craft in the way that I think about like any sort of tangible, tactile art. Like I think art directors are going to always still need to be almost like translators. If they're never going to be able to help bridge the gap between a client and an execution team, if they don't understand that execution and they don't understand the language of that medium or the language of those professionals, in one sense, that could get eaten up by AI. And then it's like art directors, you have to be the best at prompting. You have to be the best at understanding these LLMs and how to get the best stuff out of it. But even then, I think these generative models, the best images coming out of them are just mimicking beautiful art, and they're mimicking mediums that already exist. And so like if you want good images out of those generation tools, you have to know the words, you have to understand the language, or you have to be able to find the reference imagery for it. So that's where I see craft still being a huge thing. I hope, and part of me is still predicting that like actual physical, tangible craft is gonna be super valuable. And if anything, it's gonna become more in demand because of the supply of good like handmade craft is gonna start to become less and less. Like less young people are going to be illustrators, less young people are going to be photographers or whatever, because they can go home and just generate an image of the landscape that they just saw, or they can go home and generate images or things like that. So then the value of actual people who can do the craft is going to go up. But that's where I think ideas and thinking and being someone who understands like how to have a why behind the work, how to have an insight behind the work, that's just going to also be so valuable and so important. That's what I focus on the most, because I see that as the biggest missing piece for a lot of creatives. Any sort of designer or illustrator that is trying to become an art director, it's usually that they're missing the sort of conceptual layer and learning how to think of big ideas or thinking of stuff in a more insight driven way. But I don't know, it's so tricky right now. And I hate that the conversation is always like, it comes back to AI, and I have no idea how AI is going to impact things. But I think right now I can judge it and say, like, even all my content, everything, like, I cannot get Claude or ChatGPT to write better scripts than me. Like, I can't get it to do the really insightful thing, like the really insightful script writing. So I'm still doing a lot of it just myself and just writing from the brain, because I think that it's super valuable.
I think the human insight thing is the biggest thing. I think it's also the hardest thing, because it becomes, you just have to be constantly aware of things. Always just whatever you see, noting down if problems arise, stuff like that. It's just always being on, which is quite a difficult skill. And I'm still learning that, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really hard. Like, I teach in my boot camp. We spend the whole first week just on insights and like how to mine for insights and identify insights. But the hardest part is writing them. Like, it's hard for a lot of art directors, especially, or any sort of visual minded person, to articulate insights and then articulate from an insight what is the idea, the thing you could do with that insight. And so surprisingly, the thing that my boot camp we focus the most on is helping people learn how to write and like helping like you become an art director by learning how to articulate and speak and write, which is a little ironic for such a visual medium. But yeah,
for sure. Is that the modern art modern art direction?
Yeah.
School
Next,
thing?
so the boot camp, I called it Next Art Director, and it's kind of falls under modern art direction, or the school of modern art direction. It's all still like, it's all very new, and I like building the plane as I'm flying. So I launched the boot
I like
camp. I'm gonna evolve things a little bit. Gonna work on some other programs and ways to help educate people on art direction. But for right now, it's all kind of fitting in this new platform that I've slowly been starting, called just Modern Art Direction. And so I've got a newsletter about modern art direction. The podcast used to be the Toolbox podcast, and now I think I'm going to sort of transition it to just being modern art direction, mostly because I have, like, kind of in the back of my mind this goal of like, I wish someone had an art direction editorial, like a quarterly manual or quarterly like magazine kind of thing. So I feel like in a dream world, that's what modern art direction could become, is like, it could become an editorial quarterly thing, and it could, like, with like a physical book, and then the school could be bigger than just the boot camp. Right now I've got a 30-day boot camp, and I think there's just so much more potential there. So that's right now.
Sweet, that sounds awesome. I think I'm subscribed, so I look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
I was going to round it off with an AI question, but I think you've kind of already answered it, to be honest.
I'm always open to it though, too. I love talking about AI, and like, I was so invested in it early, especially when I was working at Amazon. Like, it's the reason why I kept I got promoted at Amazon, and a lot of the initiatives I did there were AI related because it was so early and fresh. And then the last year and a bit, it's just my thoughts
crazy,
and everything, like feeling about it all has shifted a lot, and I'm really trying to grapple with where I land.
I think that's the thing. Like I go through stages of absolutely delving deep into research and trying to learn how to do it, and then I'm like, whoa, maybe I need to do some more analog stuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a whirlwind at the moment.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I think the analog is always going to be valuable, though. I think it's going to be increasingly a unique trait or a unique skill to have, is being able to do things for real. And all of the most impressive craft that we see even in the industry is the stuff where they do it for real. Like even when you watch a movie and the behind the scenes isn't the most important part, but you still know the fun facts of like, yeah, they did that scene for real. Or like when they made Inception, they actually rotated a hallway, and you turn to the person next to you, you're like, did you know this? The hallway's actually turning? Like that stuff actually matters, even when, like it shouldn't have to matter because the story is just a story. But for some reason, we care about how things are made, I think.
I mean, process is art.
Yeah, such is art. Yeah, for sure.
How good was the Isle of Any, the Coinbase ad?
So good.
I think it's one of the first ones that has actually kind of made me step back a bit and be like, wow, this is incredibly cool. I haven't seen that like in a while.
Yeah. I can't imagine just the amount of, like, I know the creatives in Coinbase are very creatively driven. Like there's a lot of really strong advertising creatives now in-house at Coinbase. And so Isle of Any obviously has some clients that really trust them, that value creativity. The fascinating thing for me though is the reaction that people have to it. Some people don't love crypto and love Coinbase or whatever, but at least from my audience, where I attract a lot of creative people and all of that, like you look at the comments and people are like, yep, I love the craft, I love the storytelling, but I hate the brand, or like I hate crypto, or it's such a scam, or stuff like that. Yeah, so it's funny seeing. It'll be interesting to watch them continue to own that style and own that narrative of being like human freedom first, or like escaping the system, when there is a large audience of people, or a large demographic of people that don't view Coinbase as like a very trustworthy brand. That was really interesting for me to witness. You have to check out the comments on my video.
I'll go check out the comments. Yeah,
it's fascinating.
I just think that just from a practicals point of view, it's just so fascinating to me, like how they actually did that and how much effort went into it. And there's something in my like video game brain that's just loved it.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. And I think it's crazy how much it seems like the industry is valuing it more now than ever. Like 8 years ago, everything was about data and everything had to be proven, and everything like it was so hard to get a risky idea sold. Everyone wanted something that was like tested and proven. And now it seems like clients are finally realizing the riskiest thing you could do is do something boring and data backed and proven. And it's like, if you want to ensure people pay attention, you have to do something that hasn't been done before. You have to do something that's as creative as possible. And you could view that as a risk, but really, like, that's the least risky thing you could do, is like get people's attention by the effort that you're putting into the craft. So yeah, I think it's a fun turning point. And again, slightly like ironic with the point we are at in like the AI evolution of like AI is getting better and better, and people just want more handcrafted, tangible stuff.
It's fun.
It's like almost perfect.
There you go. Tried to get the unprompted in there.
Oh, I love that.